And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Okay, how is everyone? Hello, Myrna. PK, I gotcha. I'll explain all. Rosewater, Doris, Deb H. Hello. Brody. Thanks for joining. So, today on day 27 of Karen Reed's trial, hey Thok, hey Scorpio Moon Gal, hey Jill D. Unlucky Loughran, the plow driver, testified for Karen Reed's defense, saying he didn't see anything. He is colorblind. He also ran into a basketball net that day and that night on his plow route. And he couldn't remember. He had to make a report about it, and he didn't remember what time it is, but he's got his times down, except when he doesn't, except when it's changed a zillion times. But he is, and he definitely wasn't threatened by Aidan Turtleboy Kearney, the blogger. That all came into court today. The witness harassment campaign, and it brought up issues of witness grooming, I'd call it, with Karina Calakeus, who was friends with John O'Keefe, and Karen Reed. She was the second witness. Now I have to make a correction from anyone listening today. I said she made comments to the grand jury. This is where I was wrong. This is like the second time I've made this mistake. I've attributed people's, also Michael Camerano's testimony to the grand jury when it was to Massachusetts state troopers and not the grand jury. So correction. I like to correct myself. I do not like putting out false information into the public domain. So she told state troopers that when she went out with John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, and the crew at the Waterfall Bar that night, she's married to Nicholas Calakeus, who's a lawyer. He also testified in the first trial. They were so helpful to Karen Reed's defense that Hank Brennan wisely didn't call them this time round. I mean, they just were beaming about how great Karen Reed was and how wonderful and in love and how great the relationship was between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe that night. And so this significantly changed from what she told Massachusetts state troopers, which was that Karen Reed complained to her about John O'Keefe She said that they were planning on taking some trip together, which has never been ever verified that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe were taking a trip. It's certainly not in the contents of the text messages that have been released into the public domain. And that Karen Reed was complaining. You hear that, those in the back? Complaining about John O'Keefe's mother and complaining about his niece and nephew, that they really fouled things up. Let me read from you. Hold on one second. I'm going to go through this later. The defendant complained about the victim's mother. This is from the police report. And the lack of private time the couple had for vacations because of the children, their activities and responsibilities. So she testified that they were talking first trial, that they were talking about some vacation. Mrs. Kolokithas spoke for a period of time with the defendant and observed her to be drinking vodka soda cocktails while at the bar. This changed. Also, this trial, it's just something clear. She doesn't know what it was. It could be alcohol. Maybe it could be water or something else. Looked like an alcoholic cocktail, but maybe something else. Somehow, now she doesn't know what it is. She also recalled the defendant pushing quite a bit for a member of the group, Chris Albert, the owner of a local pizza shop, to go across the street after leaving the bar to keep partying while he made pies for everyone. So this got changed quite a bit, and she chose to play down some of her original evidence. Hold on one second. Do you hear this? I got a kitty emergency. Hold on one second. Okay, cat is out. I really need a cat door. Do you want to see the culprit, guys? This is the culprit. This is the culprit. That's the culprit right there. As soon as I start, he wants to leave this room and go out into another room, not out into the wilderness, to the New York City streets. I would never let that happen, but just out into the other room as soon as in this small apartment. Okay. So Karina Calakeus, this is what we were talking about. She testified that she spoke for a period of time with the defendant and observed her to be drinking, right? She also recalled the defendant, as I said, pushing, being very pushy, okay? That Chris Albert opened up his pizza shop so they could continue partying. So, and then it hit the first trial, and she said, I think everything started wrapping up about midnight. So I think everybody was having a really good time. So there was conversation, first of all, where people could go, and there was talk, like someone else was bringing it up. There was talk about maybe going across the street to a pizza place. Not that Karen Reed was being pushy. Suddenly there was just like discussion. There's a pizza place called D&E Pizza, and the owner happened to be there that night. So I think someone brought it up, and there was some conversation amongst the group, like, let's go over there. And he said no. She just seemed like willing to go. I believe she mentioned it more than once, but I don't remember like at this moment, but I believe it was more than once. Is that your question? And Karina also told the first jury that Karen was excited about a trip her and John O'Keefe had planned. Karina stated, but she did mention they had planned a trip or something like that, which she was excited about. And then she says, around the time of midnight or so when you were leaving, who, if this is what she was asked, who, if anyone, did you start to walk out with initially? It was always Jen, myself, and Karen. So we got up and went over to John, something like that. And he like put his arm around her. I don't know if they had a conversation. They talked. It seemed they were quite lovey-dovey at that point. So why did she use the phrase lovey-dovey? Does this ring a bell to anyone who's been following this trial? Anyone know where this phrase lovey-dovey comes into play? John's text messages to Karen where they're talking about the fight they had that morning. And he's not quick to be so lovey-dovey, meaning after a fight, as Karen is. He says, as you are. I think so. Karina, being the snake in the grass turncoat, in my opinion, that she is, befriended Karen Reed, became a free Karen Reader along with her husband, who's a lawyer, Nicholas. And that changed the content of, her story and the way she told it. And I believe Karen Reed showed her those text messages. And now she thought that John was like, gave Karen Reed a kiss on the forehead, which she never saw any man, not a kiss on the lips, not a passionate kiss on the lips. A kiss on the forehead is now the sign that they were more in love than ever that night. We'll get into it. But first, let's start with Lucky Loughran. I hope that helps. I also have footage of her husband, Nicholas, thanking Aidan Turtleboy Kearney for all his good work, harassing witnesses in this case, including Lucky Loughran, who, speaking back to the plow driver, unlucky Loughran, Brian Loughran, got targeted by Karen Reed and her private investigator. She was sure he saw something or knew something. And the guy wouldn't see something if it were right in front of him or wouldn't remember it. It was an excellent cross the first time. I think one of Adam Lally's, I thought, best crosses first trial. Hank Brennan did a good job this time. My initial reaction, I'll see if my opinion changes, was that I favored Adam Lally's cross-examination, but that may be because it was the shock of Lucky Loughran changing his story the first time you hear it so much, and that he was colorblind, that he couldn't see anything, he couldn't see the exhibits. It was so effective first trial round that I don't think any juror took Brian Loughran's testimony to heart. Let's take a look this time. This time round, we hear about Aidan Turtleboy Kearney threatening him that if he doesn't testify in a way favorable to the defense, that he's going to expose him. He knows what he did. He has some information on Brian Loughran, and he's going to spill it all. He actually threatens that he could be an accessory to a murder if he doesn't speak. And he brings his family and his pictures of him in all stages of his life into the forefront, into his blogs. So these are two pawns. Today we're really talking about two pawns or two targets of Karen Reed and her team of criminal lawyers. So let us get into it. Is everybody ready? I hope so. We're going to start with the engine of truth, cross-examination, of course. Here's Hank Brennan. So here he's saying he didn't see anything, but he did see a Ford Edge, which sort of Brian Albert drove, but also Kerry Roberts drove. And I think there's more evidence that I'll get into it that he saw Kerry Roberts' car, and even more evidence that perhaps Hank Brennan brought up something we hadn't seen before. Did he drive up and down the street trying to see what the commotion was with the police. Sure looked like it. Let's take a listen.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Have you and I met before?
No, sir.
This is our first time speaking.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you say that your memory from that night is very strong. Would it be fair to say that before today, you've talked about this case many times?
Yes.
You've interviewed with different law enforcement people as well as civilians and attorneys, haven't you?
Correct.
I have not been one of them.
No, you have not.
And is it fair to say that when you've recounted that night as far as times and what you saw, many times your memory has changed? Is that fair to say?
It has not.
You spoke to a private investigator on behalf of the defense shortly after that night?
Yes.
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
Yes.
That is the first time?
Yes.
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people, correct?
Correct.
And you've testified in court under oath?
Correct.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No.
You've been threatened.
Nope.
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you?
I was not.
You're saying as you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger?
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online...
Okay, but let's look at the evidence that the jury didn't see. This is courtesy of Innocence Fraud Watch blog. Link is in the description of this episode. So here is, it's called Killer Karen Reed Retrial. Will second jury get to hear how psychopath and innocence fraudster Aidan Turtleboy Kearney intimidated rubbernecker Brian Lucky Loughran to lie and perjure himself? Some messages between Karen Reed and Aidan Kearney. So this is probably from the middle person, Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki, who I'm hoping we're going to hear from in the rebuttal case. I'm not betting on it, but I'm hopeful. I'm keeping a little bit of hope that maybe, since this witness harassment campaign is sneaking into this case, certainly witness pressuring. Actually, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. For those that are just tuned in, so was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, Monday or Tuesday, we heard from witness Kelly. Is it Kelly Dever? She was a police officer, right? And she said that she was threatened by the defense to change her story. Let's just take a quick look at it because it's all in line. It's all of one piece.
Do you understand my question?
Dever, I'm sorry. I have a terrible
Yes, I did.
time
You
with
threatened
names.
to charge me with perjury during our phone call prior to the first trial if I didn't lie on the stand right now. I'm telling you,
Ms. Dever, did you understand my question?
yes, I did. You threatened to charge me with perjury during our phone call prior to the first trial if I didn't lie on the stand right now.
You threatened to charge me with perjury if I didn't lie on the stand right now. So here we are back with Lucky Loughran, right? Being threatened to lie on the stand. If he didn't lie on the stand, that maybe something bad would happen to him. He would be charged with murder, or he should fear Aidan Kearney because he can basically ruin his life by putting things out into the public domain that he doesn't want put out. Essentially blackmail. That's what that is, right? That's what blackmail is. So they should have. So Turtleboy says to Karen Reed, here are the text messages. Turtleboy says they should have put him closer to the curb. Karen Reed says, not public, but you can share with Aidan, so there is a middle person here. Phone was not signaling for most of the night. Best guess is it was on airplane mode. Turtleboy asks, how do they know? Aidan, I'm telling you, we know for sure when and by whom the body was planted. LOL. There's a specific reason he was placed exactly where he was. What's that, Karen? But don't believe everything you're reading about Sarah Levinson. If Proctor is lying about some things, he can lie about anything. I would say the same for Karen Reed. Sarah was not called before the grand jury to spare her from perjury. LOL. So all we have is Proctor's synopsis of her interview. Aidan says, Aidan Turtleboy Kearney still says, in this text message, I still don't understand how she knows, meaning Karen Reed knows all this about who attacked John. We will see. Karen writes back, through an intermediary, we were told by a law enforcement agent, he's actually in a Turtleboy post. Confirmed by the snowplow driver. I had to tell you, since you weren't guessing, none of this is public, then other tips and thwarting of our attempts to get evidence confirmed, everything we were tipped off to, what happened May 3rd, has happened literally a dozen times leading up to this. I've been told by the lawyers, and Alan said as much on the courthouse steps, ask certain basic questions I've been pushing for a week to get you to think about where the hell the snowplows were all night. And you need to personally go to Fairview with a quality camera and look at the shallowness of that front yard. I saw John's body like a buffalo on a prairie. Oh, she loves that line. We've heard her in interviews say that before. I knew as soon as the shock wore off that he couldn't have laid there all night. So we went to the Department of Public Works and asked to talk to the snowplower. Once they realized John was dying, they had to finish him off. I don't know if he was placed out of sight, but still outside in the cold, like the backyard, until closer to 5 a.m. So here's Aidan Turtleboy Kearney speaking directly on his show to Brian Lucky Loughran. Take a listen.
So there's two names here. We gotta get to Mr. Lucky and we gotta get to Mr. Steven. They should, again, it is in your best interest, Steve.
This is Steve Scanlon, who didn't know anything. Okay. Well, what did I do here? Okay, here we go.
Steven and Mr. Lucky to contact me. Like, let's just put it that way. Easy way and a hard way, sirs. Easy way and a hard way. We can do things the way you've been doing them, or we can do them the Turtleboy way. Like, I know whatever you're probably afraid, right? You don't want to come forward. You fear the Alberts, but you should fear me. Like, not fear, not like physical fear, but like I said, the Alberts fear me much more than I fear them, because I have the ability to severely change their lives. And that goes for you too, Stephen. And that goes for you too, Mr. Lucky. We don't have to get into that yet. But I know your friends are going to send this to you. I just want you to know, you've wanted to keep a low profile for a reason. I get it. I'm not going to allow it anymore. Just know that. The jig is up. Time's up. You've had the chance to do the right thing. So now you've chosen not to, and now I'm giving you an ultimatum. You need to contact me and do the right thing, and you're going to have a conversation with me, or Brian Albert finds out what you did, and then you can deal with him. I heard he's real friendly. I heard he's real nice. Yeah, you can deal with it. He doesn't know, does he? He doesn't know what you did. He doesn't know what you did, does he? Huh? He's going to find out. He's going to find out, and I got proof. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm being intentionally vague. I'm being intentionally vague right now. to protect them a little bit. But I just want to let them know I got you, though. I got you. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. And by the way, I know what's on that phone with Brian Albert. They're not going to find that much shit. But I know one person he called. And I hope he's listening right now. Lucky. Mr. Lucky. You know who you are. And you know what you did. And you know what you're hiding. And you know what you said. And I know shit. And I know all about you. And you're going to be seeing me, sir. And we're going to have some questions for you. So I highly suggest you reach out to me first before I put this all out there. Because we'll see what happens, sir. Because I know you're watching this. And you know who I'm talking about. Because Brian Albert called you that day. Brian Albert called you a couple times.
Okay, so
If you don't want to die from neuropathy, don't make.
So that's that. That is that. What do you think it is? Sounds like a threat to me, doesn't it? Sound like a threat to you? Back to his testimony.
Blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you? Anytime from when.
Strangely, Aidan Kearney showed up in court this day. Was just his presence there to keep an eye on his testimony, make sure he didn't slip up and implicate him? I don't know.
When you first spoke to the private investigator until today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence to you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No,
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, I did.
When friends told you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
And so during the pendency of this case, not only were you aware that you were being pressured to testify a certain way, you also knew there'd be consequences if you didn't. Isn't that true?
I'm going to allow that.
The premise of that question is not accurate.
So he can answer it.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not.
PK, it wasn't shown in court. I don't know if they tried, if Hank Brennan tried and Canoni kept out a lot of stuff on sidebar. I would think so. But you'll see what was shown to show influence. It's coming up.
Not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case that there has been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No,
Sir, you received a call from that blogger, didn't you?
I did.
And during that call, did you know the person was recording you?
I did not.
You later learned that the person recorded you.
I did not.
Do you know that your conversations were spread throughout the community online?
I was.
Sir, some of those communications or inquiries were claims that you would be exposed for personal matters if you didn't testify a certain way, weren't they?
No.
Inevitably, you've met this person, haven't you?
I've seen him. I haven't met him.
Have you ever spent time with him?
No, I have not.
You're still a follower of that blog.
I am.
When you follow the blog, do you read anything or do you watch it?
No, I don't do much anything towards the blogger.
As you follow it, you can see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No,
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
no,
Haven't you ever been celebrated after you've testified in a way favorable for one
Yes.
side or the other?
yes,
And so when you were being celebrated, that certainly took off any pressure that would be consequence, didn't it?
Ask it differently.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
I did find it to be encouraging,
Did
but
you-
I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
Did you enjoy the attention that you got?
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Well, did anybody from the district attorney's office ever suggest they would confront you or punish you if you didn't testify a certain way?
No.
How many friends contacted you about what was being said before you testified, the pressure? How many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you. All my friends were telling me.
So you were hearing a lot of noise or information from your friend group and community about what was being said about you.
Yes.
And this was before you testified at the first trial, sir.
This was before.
Sir, you work hard, don't you?
I do.
You work many different jobs.
I do.
You try to be a good citizen.
I do.
You are not looking for attention.
I am not.
It was brought to you.
It was brought to me.
You wish you never had that attention, don't you?
Yes.
Because you just want to live your life the way you want to live it rather than have people you don't know attacking, criticizing, or intimidating you.
I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that, please?
Would it be fair to say that you simply want to live your life the way you've been living it without outside people attacking or pressuring or threatening you?
Yes.
On June 15, 2023, you were contacted by the defense private investigator, weren't you? And you may not know the dates. Were you contacted twice by the private investigator?
I would need to know what time frame we're looking at.
Fair enough. By the way, the blogger that I speak of, do you know if he is friendly or supports one side over the other?
I know he is friendly towards one side, yes.
Okay. The side sitting in the back of the room?
I would say the defense team.
You've interacted with a private investigator hired by the defense?
Yes.
Have you also interacted with any of the attorneys?
Yes.
Which attorneys have you interacted with?
Mr. Yannetti.
Have you contacted or have you spoken to any other attorneys other than Mr. Yannetti?
Just Mr. Yannetti.
How many times have you spoken to Mr. Yannetti?
Again, what are we talking? First trial, this trial?
The entire time, from that night until today. Can you remember how many times that you've
About
spoken?
5 times.
How many times have you gone in to be interviewed by him?
4 times?
During those interviews, were they spaced out over the course of this case?
Yes.
What was the purpose of those interviews?
To go over my testimony.
When you went over testimony, were you ever shown prior testimony?
Yes.
Were you shown prior reports?
No.
Were you shown a prior investigator's report?
Yes.
Were you shown a prior report by a law enforcement agency that is not the state police and not Canada?
Not by Mr. Yannetti. I saw that first document for the first time during the first trial.
When you were discussing your testimony, was there a discussion about the fact that the times that you gave the private investigator were different than the report from that law enforcement agency?
Could you repeat that question, please?
When you were preparing for trial in those meetings, was it brought up, did you discuss that there was a difference in your memory, or at least in the reports, between what you told the defense private investigator and what you told that other law enforcement agency?
No.
Were you aware that there was a difference between the different statements attributing your memory as to time?
The first trial, yes.
Please hit the thumbs up, guys. Let people know that we're here, we're around, we're rattling around, live streaming.
When you were with the defense preparing for trial, did you go over your testimony?
Yes.
Did you go over questions and answers?
Yes.
Were you ever subjected to a make-pretend cross-examination about issues that were important in this case?
No,
Were you ever pointed to any particular issues that were important to talk about in this case?
no.
When you did the questions and answers, were they written down or just a conversation?
Can you repeat that one, please? I'm sorry.
When you went through the questions and answers in preparing, practicing for your testimony, were they written down?
So ask me to,
When you were preparing for your testimony, were the questions and answers written down, or was it just speaking?
Just speaking.
Those 4 times that you met, is that a guess, or was it 4 times?
It was about 4 times, yes.
4 times to go over just tell the truth. Seems an awful lot, no? Hey, the real deal. Thanks for becoming a member. Wesley loves Octoberfest. Did I hear that you're now cancer free? Congratulations. Thanks so much. Great job. Thank you. Thanks, sir. And congratulations. That's great news.
Have there been more?
No.
And during those 4 times, was there anything different other than going through questions and answers about testimony and preparation? Was there any other subjects you talked about?
There were none.
Did you ever receive any compensation, sir?
I received none.
Do you know whether people were sending you compensation that you didn't receive?
No.
You don't know?
I never received anything.
Were you given anything to bring home with you so that you could remember past testimony or some of the questions and answers that were going to be asked?
No.
How long were your meetings in preparation for your testimony?
About 45 minutes to an hour?
Were they all about the same time, or were they different? When you came into court last year, it's fair to say this is after you became aware of essentially being targeted, correct?
you can answer that if you can. Can you answer that, Mr. Loughran?
I can. I don't ever felt like I was being targeted.
This was after you received all the information from your friends and people in the community that you were being attacked.
I'll allow that.
Again, I don't feel like I was being targeted.
Are you concerned after this case what happens with the blogger that you follow?
No.
Did anyone wonder if Hank Brennan used a different word, targeted, than targeted, if he would have answered affirmatively? Anyone else wonder that? I did. I did through this. I don't know what else you could say. Targeted. Blackmailed. I guess he would have said no to that. Is there a gentler word than targeted? I think maybe targeted was the most gentle word in Hank Brennan's dictionary there in front of him. I mean, choices that he had. What do you guys think?
You talked about your meeting with the private investigator. The first time you met him, do you remember that meeting?
Yes.
Do you remember where you met him?
I met him at my place of employment.
Did you go anywhere with him that day?
No, I did not.
You had a conversation with him and you spoke about what you had remembered from that.
Yeah, picked on. That's a good suggestion, Carmel. What's a nice word to say? Blackmailed. What's a nice way to say blackmailed? Did he suggest that you talk to him or else? Did he say speak with you or else? I mean, how can he deny that? I mean, it's there in black and white. You show the transcripts of the YouTube.
That night?
Yes.
Do you remember when you spoke to that private investigator, you weren't sure how many times you went up and down Fairview that night? That you had said 2 or 3?
No, I told him I went up at 2:30 at 2. I told him at 3:30 I went up 2. Went up and down. And I told him about 3 hours later I went up and down. I went down and wasn't able to go around the police cruisers and had to turn around at Carriage Lane.
I have to say, I don't know if he would have known the word unfairly disparaged, live stream, lurking. I don't know if he would have known that word. Hold on. Disparaged. I had to look up a word he used. Zambone. Zamboni. It's like an ice. He was using the Zambone in the ice skating rink. It's like a ice skating leveler. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know. So I learned a word. He had a word in his vocab that I didn't know.
You mentioned that you believe you told the private investigator that you went up and down at 2:30. Do you remember when you spoke to the private investigator, you actually said 3 o'clock?
I don't remember the 3 o'clock.
May I approach?
Yeah, good point, Patricia Burns. We were all wondering why Aidan moved seats while others had left the room, and I think it was so he could be more visible to Lucky, says Patricia Burns. I think you're right, Patricia. Yeah, odd, right? This is a technique they use also in civil. Hey, Carmel O'Reilly, thanks for the super sticker. In civil depositions, I've seen people use it to intimidate people. The subject of the deposition will come in and watch and just observe, just to intimidate.
Yes.
And before I do you remember you said that when you went on your second pass, it was around 3:15?
I told him I went up Fairview between about 2:40 to 2:45, and I said about 45 minutes later, I went for the second time.
Okay. Now you said 2:30, and you just now said 2:40 to 2:45, and then you said 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember telling the private investigator that when you think, or you said you saw a Ford Edge, you were actually still on Cedar Brook, not on Fairview, passing by it, but you saw it from the street at Cedar Brook? Do you remember telling him that?
I
Sorry,
don't remember.
Cedar Crest.
Secret. I don't remember ever saying that.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes. I'll show you a copy. This is a report that you didn't write, so I don't want you to read it. I want to show it to you and see if it helps remind you of what you told the private investigator that day. You can look at any part of this, but what I'm asking you is whether or not you remember telling the private investigator that when you saw the car, you weren't passing on Fairview, you were up on Cedar Crest. That's the question I'm asking. So I'd ask you to look at whatever part you want, but I'm going to point out a part to you. When you're done, don't answer, just look up and then I'll get to ask you some questions about your memory, okay?
Okay.
So I directed to this part, but you can look at any part that you want, sir.
Yeah, I don't watch hockey. I don't watch hockey, PK. I don't. JMS. Although when I was born, my dad said he was watching my birth. He said, this is better than the Rangers game. It's a true story. JMS, thanks for the super sticker.
Are you done, sir?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, do you now remember when you were speaking to the defense investigator about seeing a car? You said that about 3:30 to 4 a.m. when you were plowing Cedar Crest Road, you looked toward Fairview Road and saw a small SUV parked in front of the house. Remember telling the PI that?
I never remember telling him that.
When you spoke to law enforcement, not the Canton Police or the state police, you understood it was important to be as accurate as possible?
Yes.
And you understood, at least with that law enforcement agency, if you misled them in any way, it could be up to a 10-year penalty?
Yes.
When you spoke to them, did you take that interview very seriously?
Yes.
Try to be as precise and accurate as you could?
Yes.
And when you spoke to them, obviously, like anybody, you had in mind there could be serious consequences if they felt misled.
Yes.
You try to be honest with them,
Yes.
provide them your best memory in good faith.
Yes.
And this was shortly before, well, actually, this was May 24th, 2023, correct?
Correct.
When you met, there was more than one person there from this agency?
I believe so.
If you're wondering why the Karen cam is so off center, it's because we were looking at Daddy Reed and just getting redder in the face. So I don't know who was more red in the face, Lucky Loughran or William Reed. Those are Karen Reed's mother. Anybody know who the curly-haired woman and the bald-headed man behind them were? Let me know in the comments.
Was there potentially two?
There was two.
And when you met with them, they asked you about when you began working that night.
Yes.
You told them 11:30 to midnight.
I never told them that.
And so as you sit here today, your memory is you did not tell those law enforcement agents that you began work at 11:30 to 12?
We had a 2:30 start time.
I understand, but I'm asking you,
I never told them. It was always 2:30 start time.
when you spoke to them, do you remember telling them the first time you were out near the area was midnight?
Nope. No.
When you spoke to those law enforcement personnel, were they taking notes?
I believe so.
Have you ever seen their report?
Is he Irish born? That's interesting. He was born in the same town in Ireland. Which part of Ireland? I'm curious, PK. Crazy about Ireland. Great, great country. So I didn't realize he was Irish born, but he was raised in Massachusetts. I didn't know that either. Thanks, PK. Let me know which part of Ireland he was born in.
The first trial I did, yes.
Who showed you that report?
It was shown to me by Prosecutor Lally.
You think Prosecutor Lally showed you that report?
It was shown to me.
And do you remember telling those two law enforcement personnel that you believe that there were emergency vehicles, ambulances, or police cars in front of Fairview at 3 to 3:30 a.m.?
I do not.
Are you saying that you did not say these things to them, or are you saying that that's not your memory?
Wah, wah. Oh, that's a fighter? That's disappointing. That would have been fun. That's a fun backstory. We just played, Leo, I just played the police officer's testimony all day. Where have you been? All day I played it, and I talked about it last night. Come on, Leo, where have you been? Where have you been not watching this channel, just coming in to troll?
That's not what I said.
And so you're saying that's wrong. You're denying
Correct.
you made those statements.
Correct.
At the time they say that you told them there was emergency vehicles there at 3 a.m., that is the same time that you told the PI that you saw the footage, around 3:30 to 4, correct?
About 3:30 is when I saw the footage.
It was dark out that night, wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was.
You testified at trial? I'm sorry, at a proceeding last year?
I testified that there were, it was asked to me that there were not any streetlights, and I entered in the affirmative way, and living in that neighborhood, I saw that there were actual streetlights.
You testified at a proceeding last year, didn't you?
Yes.
When you testified at the proceeding, did you meet anybody from the defense close in time to that proceeding?
I don't know, when we met, how close to the proceedings it was.
Do you remember being prepared before you went into trial last time?
Yes.
By
Yannetti, excuse me.
Do you remember telling the defense private investigator that you made your final pass at 6:30 a.m.?
I remember I told him it was about 3 hours going down Cedar Crest and was not able to go to the end of Fairview due to the first responders.
At trial last year, do you remember saying it was 5:30?
I did.
And today you had said about 6:15.
Yes,
You weren't timing anything on a watch for times, were you?
I was not.
You were not accounting in any way for time whatsoever when you were out that night, were you?
No, I was not.
When you're providing times, are you trying to use your best memory?
Yes,
Do you recognize that you have a differing memory on times of what you did that night?
no,
You talked about your view from the tow truck and that you have a bunch of lights on it. On the tow truck, you had mentioned that your vision to the side was 5 to 6 feet.
Can you rephrase that, please?
Yes, of course. You said when you were driving your tow truck, you could see forward and sideways.
Okay, I don't want to be, I don't drive a tow truck.
My apologies. My apologies. A snowplow.
Thank
You
you.
said you can see forward and sideways.
I can see forward, I can see diagonal, and I can see right to left.
When you look right to left, you said you could see about 5 feet.
Correct.
Do the lighting conditions affect how well you can see?
No.
Is the weather?
Yes.
When you're plowing, are you ever looking at the street in front of you?
Yes.
Are you looking at people's front yards?
Yes.
And so what did you see as far as the front door of the Albert house that night? Was it open or closed?
It was closed.
The lights on?
I can't answer that for sure. I don't remember if there were lights on.
How about the neighbors on the left? Were you looking at their front line?
Yes.
Did you see if their lights were on?
Again, I didn't recognize if their lights were on.
Do you look at every neighbor's front line up to the door as you're driving in the snow plowing?
I look to the right and to the left, and my eyes will graze to the yard. Yes, I will look there.
You were saying you have a specific memory of looking at the Albert front yard all the way to the door. Do you have a specific memory of looking at the other neighbors' yards to their door?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Yes, you said that you looked at the Albert house all the way to the door.
Correct.
Do you have a memory of looking at any other houses all the way to the door?
Yes.
Okay. Which house had a dumpster in front of it?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to a dumpster. Dumpster wouldn't be in the front yard.
Dumpster wouldn't be in the front yard. You didn't know a giant dumpster. Did everybody hear that? Is everybody listening? Do I need to start moderating the chat? Is it getting rowdy?
Are you sure on your route there's no dumpsters in anybody's front yard?
I can tell you there was a dumpster this week.
No. I'm more interested in January 29, 2020.
I can't answer to that. I don't remember.
A dumpster, a 15 by 20 foot dumpster, that would be bigger than a man's body, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
And so you have no really specific memory of the other homes in the neighborhood that night?
I mean, I looked. I saw. I didn't see a dumpster that would have definitely stuck out.
Okay. You said you had vision as far as your eyes could see.
Correct.
What does that mean?
It means if there were, my eyes were, as long as they're open, I can see as far as they will let me see.
Is that dependent on lighting conditions, darkness, snow?
Correct.
That night, did you have any difficulty paying attention or driving?
I did not.
Did you have a small accident that night?
I did.
Okay, what did you hit?
I hit a portable basketball net.
Was that part because of the weather conditions? You didn't have a good opportunity to see it?
No, I definitely saw it and just did not judge enough.
I saw it, but I ran right into it. And then I don't remember what time I did it, but I definitely remember all these times years later on the road. It's definitely not, my memory's definitely gotten better.
You said that you went up and down the road a couple of times. When you were asked to describe the car that you said you saw, when you first spoke to the defendant's private investigator, you didn't give any detail about the type of car, did you?
I told her it was a Ford Edge.
When you first spoke to the investigator, you used the words Ford Edge?
I did.
Did they bring you to a parking lot at some point?
They did.
And when they brought you to a parking lot, did they have you go out in the parking lot and look at a Ford Edge?
They did.
And when they had you go out and look at the Ford Edge, did they have you identify that as the type of car?
They did.
And when you did that, how many cars were in the parking lot?
We had a hockey game, so there were several, at least 100, 150.
Who pointed you to the Ford Edge?
I pointed to it.
Did the investigator take you to the Ford Edge?
No, he did not.
It was just an open parking lot, and he asked you to look around to see if there happened to be a similar car?
No, I told him a Ford Edge. He wanted to make sure I knew what a Ford Edge looked like. I pointed to the Ford Edge, and he was satisfied.
So after you said a Ford Edge, he brought you to a parking lot to point out a car?
We were at my place of business. We just walked out the door.
Where was that?
At the Metropolis ice rink.
The rink?
Ice rink, yes.
Did you then meet the investigator later on at a school?
Yes, I did.
And who did you meet at the school?
I met Paul again.
And what was the purpose of that?
He wanted to go through my route.
You wanted to go through your route.
Correct.
And then, did you choose to meet at the school?
I did.
You did?
I did.
And why did you choose the school?
It was an easier landmark for the gentleman to get to, and it was minutes from my route.
Did you know that former Trooper Proctor's sister worked there?
I had no idea.
You said last year that when you went by Fairview, did you say that you would buy your final pass at 5:30 a.m.?
No.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Sir, when you have contact, you also wear reading glasses?
Yes. I can't read things up close.
Understood. This is trial testimony, testimony from June 21st, 2024.
Mhm.
And you were asked do you recall what time it was that you wound up back on Fairview? You said, I don't honestly recall what specific time. Yes?
Yes.
And then you were asked, sure. Approximately, if it was 3:15 to 3:30, that second time, what would be your best estimate of the time when you came back? And what did you say?
Say about 5:30.
And so even last year, you were having some difficulty remembering the times, right? Were you having difficulty last year remembering the times that you were on Fairview?
No.
When you said you were on Fairview last year at 5:30, you didn't see anything on the outer front lawn at 5:30 a.m.?
I wasn't on Fairview at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. Were you asked last year about your travels on Fairview?
Yes.
Okay. When you asked about, recall, was the time you wound up on Fairview, and you said you didn't remember. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
Is that true testimony?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you had some difficulties in your memory of when you were on Fairview when you testified last year. Isn't that fair to say?
No, it's not fair.
And then you were asked approximately if it was
No, it's not fair. I said I didn't remember what time I was on Fairview. So you said had some difficulties in your memory last time. What else do you want to call it? I think he just objects to certain words being used. What do you call it when you don't remember? Difficulties in your memory? You didn't remember last year, now you remember? I mean, come on.
it was 3:15 to 3:30 the second time, what time did you come back?
And I said, if I were to guess, I said 45 minutes later.
Did you say, I would say, if I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview?
That time was incorrect. It was 6:15. I couldn't go down any further due to the police presence.
So your testimony last year, you understandably made a mistake about the time, correct?
I did.
And it's true, isn't it, that you really have somewhat foggy memory about the times.
It is not.
That time of 5:30 is very different than the time you told the agents when you met them, the law enforcement officials that weren't from Canton or the state police. That was very different than when you told them 3 to 3:30.
Very different.
And it's different than the 3:30 to 4 timeline that you gave the defense private investigator the first time you spoke to them. Correct?
Correct.
And it's different than what you told the jury today, that it was 6:15.
It's different, but it's not.
When you plowed that night, did you have any reason to look for somebody who was lying on the side of a yard?
No,
Did you have any expectation somebody would be lying helpless on the side of a yard that night?
no.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of super sympathy either to people who are weak like this for whatever reasons. I have sympathy for people who've stood up, like Jen McCabe, and done the right thing and testified truthfully, not perjured themselves for whatever reason. I get it. He's a weak person. Yeah, I get it. I just don't, it's just not naturally where I get super sympathetic to give this kind of testimony in front of the grieving O'Keefe family to help a murderer. I don't have hatred, but it's disappointing and it doesn't tip my sympathies for him.
If you had seen somebody, certainly you would have helped.
Correct.
When you said that, when the private investigator asked you where you were when you said you saw the Fort Edge, are you saying that you didn't tell the private investigator that you were on Cedar?
J. Ray, how do I know he's weak? I know he's weak because he's changed his story. That's how I know so many times. And buckled to the defense. I mean, do you want me to go over it? You want me? All right, let me go over it, guys. Let me go over it. Hey, Pat Brooks, thanks so much. Hi, Roberta. I can't remember about a dumpster. I didn't remember a dumpster either. And I did listen to his testimony today, but I could have missed it because I was doing other things like making thumbnails and stuff. I didn't hear a dumpster from his testimony from last year, but I thought that was new. I might listen again after this is over, but yeah, I thought that was new. Hank Brennan bringing something new in. Hey, Roberta, I can't, but it may be in the testimony. Let me know. Is anyone else listened to Lucky's testimony lately and heard about a dumpster? I didn't, but I may have missed it. Sometimes I miss things. Hi, Roberta. I can't remember about a dumpster from last year's. Please tell me if there was one. Hi to all of you. You're awesome. You're awesome, Pat Brooks. And Roberta, awesome mods and awesome chat. Thanks so much. I think your latex spouse, one of my awesome mods, is out on vacay. I hope she's enjoying it.
I don't remember telling him I was on Cedar Crest. I do remember telling him that I had turned onto Fairview and saw the vehicle.
Cedar Crest in a storm at night is quite a distance from the flagpole at Fairview, isn't it?
No,
About 300 feet?
roughly.
Difficult to see under those conditions?
No.
Could we have Exhibit 71, Stream 0, at about 6:17 a.m., please? Could you stop it there? Can you see that street light?
I do?
Okay. At the end of that road, past the street light, is Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Actually, this is a good time. This is a really good time to go over Innocence Fraud Watch's Excellente blog, just the end of it, just some of the video that's attached to it. Aidan Kearney also posted the following to Facebook. Brian Lucky Loughran plowed Fairview Road multiple times during the night that the DA's office alleges John O'Keefe's body lay outside of Brian Albert's home. He never reported anything and has never been questioned by the police. He initially told many people before suddenly refusing to cooperate. His silence makes him just as complicit as the rest of the cop killers and is a direct attack on Karen Reed's freedom. And he includes a link to his blog. And here's a message from to and from Aidan. Hi, Brian. I have a question. Okay. Did you plow Fairview Road on the morning of January 29, 2022? I'm willing to keep your name out of this as I don't want you dragged into this. And Lucky answers, I'm not answering any questions anymore. I'm sorry if that makes things difficult. The following are excerpts from Turtleboy's blog. 7 motions were filed in the case of the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed today, 3 by the defense and 4 by the Commonwealth. The first 2 were the defense's motions for all GPS data from Canton DPW plows on the morning of John O'Keefe's murder and an affidavit from a private investigator. My interview with Brian Lucky Loughran is cited heavily throughout the motion. Last month, I interviewed Loughran on the record during a phone call, which I transcribed using my photographic memory. Lucky told me that, anyone else skeptical about that? Lucky told me that he had, I think he should show off his photographic memory live on the air. Lucky told me that he had plowed Fairview Road at around 2:30 and said that John O'Keefe's body was not on the front lawn of Brian Albert's house. When he came back an hour later, he was going to plow Fairview again and couldn't because a Ford Edge was parked where the body would later be found by Karen Reed at 6 a.m. So this became I couldn't plow because it was the police cars were there. During our interview, Loughran told me that he had been confronted by the FBI with GPS data from his plow, proving that he had gone by the house at 2:30 a.m. He told me that they had recently picked him up and had him retrace the route he took that night. He also told me that he had told the same thing to Karen Reed's private investigator over a year ago. We are now seeing the PI's report for the first time. Paul Mawowski. There's all these kinds of people that become innocence fraudsters. Former police officers, former detectives, former FBI agents, all involved in innocence fraud. Paul Makowski retired from the Medford Police Department in 2021. Like a lot of retired law enforcement, Makowski started his own PI business. He was hired by Karen Reed out of her own pocket. So also, interestingly, at the time that Karen Reed says she was on her parents' couch, racked with grief, was also the same time, the day after she murdered John O'Keefe, when she said she was going from place to place with the private investigator, quote unquote, retracing her steps from that night. One of the first things he wanted to do was speak with whoever plowed Fairview Road. On February 14, 2022, he went to speak with Billy Walsh, the highway department supervisor I met with 2 weeks ago, who told Makowski something Walsh had been instructed not to tell me, that I already knew that Lucky Loughran plowed Fairview Road that night. Makowski knew that the conspirators would likely say that just because Loughran hadn't seen John's body, it didn't mean John's body wasn't there. For the reason he specifically asked Loughran if he would have seen a body if it was there, Loughran unequivocally stated that he would have seen the body and explained that this was because he always looks in front of him and from side to side. When asked about where he saw the Ford Edge parked, he clearly stated exactly where the body was found. I mean, nobody saw John O'Keefe's body, and they drove right past it that night. Much better conditions, except Julie Nagel, who saw something and thought it was out of the ordinary, but didn't say anything about it. It was just some dark outline of something. The defendant's motion for order pursuant to Mass RCrim P17 directed to the Canton Department of Public Works and the Canton Town Clerk. On September 2nd, Aidan Kearney published the following to X. As a direct result of our reporting, the defense is now asking the court to direct the Canton DPW to hand over all the GPS data for plow trucks since Lucky Loughran confirmed to us that the FBI confronted him with GPS data showing he plowed Fairview Road. Okay, and they were seeking, here's this defense motion where it says GPS, they're seeking GPS data associated with the plow drivers. Brian Loughran had previously denied that the FBI confronted him with GPS data showing he plowed Fairview Road. Below is a copy of an extract from Massachusetts State Police interview in which he stated the claims that were utterly false. It states in the transcripts that I was presented with GPS information from the FBI. That is utterly false. I was never given any information or documentation from the FBI other than a subpoena to the grand jury. And here is Boundless Millennials video on Lucky
Loughran, the plow truck driver. Karen Reed's
right. Karen Reed's special expert. I'm going to be stopping and
star
starting
witness who was caught in lie after lie during his testimony.
How long did it take you before you wound up back at Cedar Crest and Fairview?
About 45 minutes.
Did he know that he was lying? Was he coached into saying it? That's the real question.
What time was it, to your best estimate, in terms of when you would have approached Fairview and Cedar Crest again?
3:15 to 3:30.
All right.
He says around 5:30 a.m. he drives down Fairview Road, doesn't see a body, doesn't see anything.
It would have been Cedar Crest side.
Coming from Cedar Crest, and then you went up Fairview, came back down?
Came back down. As I'm going up, I am actually seeing first responders. And at that point, as I'm coming back down, the road's blocked at that point.
Now that's the...
Right, but then he says that the road was blocked because of a Ford Edge, no? Am I confusing things, or is this a different time?
First time he's ever told that version of the story. There's recorded interviews from the feds, from the state police, where he said that he looked down the street and couldn't make the turn. And he said he was going to make a left-hand turn from Cedar Crest onto Fairview, but he couldn't because the road was blocked. Now we can see at 6:10, 6:11 a.m. when the first responder arrived, the road was not blocked off yet. We can see a plow driving by. Number one, if the plow was going to turn onto the street, it would have been a right-hand turn. And number two, there's no way that the plow could have been on the other side of Fairview coming back up the street, and it stopped at Carriage Lane.
If I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview, and came back down, and then at that point I wasn't able to go further.
Is he right about that? Am I getting the opposite sides of the roads? Doesn't that look like that would be a left-hand turn onto Fairview Road from Cedar Crest? Am I wrong?
In Carriage Lane.
Or maybe it's a different, maybe he's talking about a
Unless
different
this is
turn.
a different plow. But I don't think it is, because the first story that Lucky Loughran told was that he saw first responders from Cedar Crest, looking down Cedar Crest at the house, and he couldn't make his turn.
As I'm going up, I am actually seeing first responders. And at that point, as I'm coming back down, the road's blocked at that point.
Remember how the Free Karen Reed freaks were like trying to raise money for Lucky Loughran and buying t-shirts like thanks Lucky or whatever the hell it said for his testimony? Because they knew it was a lie. They knew that he was helping to push a conspiracy theory. I don't think that Lucky Loughran really knew that he was lying. I think that he was talked into this timeline by the defense attorneys. But, you know, we can see the dash cam video. We can see his prior interviews, and nothing lines up. In that same interview, Lucky Loughran also says that he was on Fairview when the police arrived. So he can't be in two places at once.
Fairview Road was blocked off by cruisers at about 3 or 3:30 in the morning.
Again, that would have been incorrect.
You don't recall indicating to anyone in May of 2023 that you went past Fairview at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.?
Correct, never did.
And you don't recall telling anyone that you saw the car around 1:30 or 2 a.m.? Is that correct?
Correct.
And the guy clearly has
Right. It's like, so the story has changed so much. Does everybody get that?
reduced mental capacity.
Again, I don't remember saying that.
And he's just agreeing.
Right. So, I mean, every time a story changes and every time he gets more certain that this is the story and he's sticking with this story, and it sounds very scripted. Whoever said that in the chat, I agree. It's very scripted and rehearsed. That's how it comes off. Yeah, this is the link to actually a different but very similar video is in the description, but this is also in the description linked with Innocence Fraud Watch's blog. So back to his testimony. We can return to this if you want, but just to give you an idea of how much his story has changed.
Is that a fair depiction of the elements that night around that time?
Yes.
And in this case, there's further illumination with the car that's facing us?
Correct.
That wasn't there, was it?
Correct.
You said after you saw law enforcement, did you come down Fairview after you saw law enforcement?
I was on Fairview already when I saw the law enforcement.
Did you drive by Cedar Crest again to go back and forth and watch what was going on, or did you go on your route?
I went on my route, which included Cedar Crest.
Did you keep driving by because you wanted to watch, or did you just leave and do your regular route?
I went and did my regular route.
Could I have 61927, please? And could you play it? If you could back up a little before 61927. Is that weather consistent with what it looked like to you?
Yes.
Is that you there?
I don't know if that's me. Yes, that's me. That is me.
Could we go to 63245, please? Is that you again?
That one, I can't tell if that was me again.
Could we go to 63514, please? Was that you?
I don't see it. I don't see the truck. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Could we go back to 63512?
That looks like to be a pickup truck. That does not look like my truck.
63745, please. And that's you again, right?
Again, I can't tell you for sure if that was me.
Those were not your red and orange lights consistent with the earlier ones that went by?
What I saw the first time was the reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
Can we go to
I have
seven?
a plow guy that is a contractor that we work tandem together.
And was he out there that night as well, going by Fairview?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever tell the private investigator about him?
Yes, I did.
7 o'clock, 22 seconds, please. Is that you, sir?
can't say for sure.
7:15, 45 seconds, please.
This is crazy. You can see him go by in the distance, and he's like, "Who else would be?" I mean, this is before the seventh worst storm in Massachusetts history, a blizzard, and he's like, "Nobody was out on those roads. Nobody would want to be out on those roads." I mean, do you really think that was a truck? And then he's talking about another plow driver that worked in tandem with him. Why wasn't that plow driver interviewed? Why was only Lucky interviewed if there was someone working in tandem with him? No? By the free Karen readers and her, I'm not saying by the police. I mean, they make a big deal that the police didn't interview Lucky till after he was interviewed by Aidan Turtleboy Kearney. But what did he see? Nothing. In fact, he just confused the issue. That's why it was helpful to Karen Reed. I mean, he hasn't been really, I don't think any juror is going to take his testimony seriously.
Do you recognize that plow?
I do not.
7:19 and 55 seconds, please. Was that you, sir?
That was me.
How long does your route take?
It's hard to say. I mean, as long as it's on, it can take as long as it takes.
Well, if you're going to do a pass, how long does an entire pass take?
If I were to do from Cedar Crest to the end, it would take probably 10 minutes. If I were to do the entire route, I'm not cleaning up. I'm just giving it a pass so people can get through. Could take about 3 hours. Could take 4 hours.
When you mentioned Brian Albert on your direct examination, had you talked to the defense about Brian Albert in your preparation for testimony?
No.
You knew some of the Albert family?
I know the entire Albert family.
And you know Brian Albert as a police officer?
Yes, I do.
Why is it that 3 times in your direct testimony you characterized him as a first responder?
Because he's a police officer. They're first responders.
Did anybody ever suggest to you to use the terms or the phrases first responder when you were describing Brian Albert?
No one did. Those were my words.
Since your testimony last year, have you received any more?
That's interesting. So, I mean, it's almost like you can take his denials as the opposite. These questions are so good. I mean, really, he'd use the term first responder with an officer? I don't use that term. Do you guys?
Focusing or targeting of harassment? Since last year when you testified, have you received any recent aggression towards you for testifying?
No.
Have you had any further focus or problems?
No.
I have no further questions.
Very briefly, sir. You were asked by Mr. Brennan about whether you saw a dumpster that night. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do.
In the aftermath of January 29th of 2022, was a dumpster all over the news for the next 3.5 years?
Not that I'm aware of.
You were asked about going through your route with the defense investigator and giving a statement to the defense investigator.
Yes.
How soon after January 29th of 2022 was that?
2 weeks.
Were the events fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
Finally, actually not finally, I got two more points, but they're both brief. You had mentioned that that night you actually misjudged and hit a net.
Yes.
Can you describe the basketball apparatus that, and I'm going to ask you what part of it you hit, but describe what that looks like.
It's got a base with wheels on it. It's portable, so you can move it in and out. And it's got the basketball frame, and it's got the backboard and then rim.
Okay. So this is not a pole that was cemented into the ground.
Correct.
But perhaps we're all familiar with it, the black base that maybe you put sandbags on,
Correct.
that type of thing to keep it in place, but it does have wheels?
Correct.
All right. And you mentioned the net. The net is the rope netting that comes down, correct? There's also a hoop that keeps the net in place?
Yes.
And the pole?
Correct.
And the base?
Correct.
Of all those things, what part did your Franken truck actually catch?
It caught the net in the little bit part of the frame, of the frame where the net was.
Something that you saw from the beginning, you just misjudged the distance.
Correct.
Now, finally, with regard to the 5:30 testimony that you gave last year,
Yes.
did you also testify that the last pass that you tried to make when the police were blocking the scene was about 3 hours after that 3:30 second up and down?
Yes.
So why is it last year that you testified that it was 3 hours later, but you came up with the time of 5:30 as the final time?
As he's asking me these questions, I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm sorry, math is not my strong suit.
What time was it when you made that final pass, sir?
6:15, 6:15, 6:30.
I have nothing further.
You mentioned you're trying to do the math in your head. There is no reason why you would specifically remember certain times on each pass other than trying to remember and give an accounting, right?
Could you rephrase that, please?
Sure. You don't have your watch out on a certain schedule that you have to pass a certain street at a certain time.
Correct.
You weren't marking your times to some event when you were driving up and down the street that night, were you?
No.
So you're trying to go back with your memory and piece it together the best you can.
Correct.
And that's why you're giving estimates, yes?
Correct.
When you spoke to those law enforcement officials, not Canton, not state police, and you said at 3 o'clock you saw first responder vehicles, that was based on your memory, wasn't it? Yes. It was based on your memory.
Not at 3:30.
Right. Do you know that there was a car similar to a Ford Edge in front of 34 Fairview around 6 a.m. that morning?
I wasn't able to get in front of Fairview Drive, 34 Fairview, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Have you ever met Terry Roberts before?
I have not.
Counsel just asked you if there was a lot of media about this case, and you said that there was. Did he just ask you a question about whether there was a lot of attention on this case? Did he just talk to you about everything that happened after this case, all the attention on this case? Remember his question about all the attention after this case?
He asked specifically a question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case, as far as attention is concerned. You remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing? May I approach?
Yes.
Wow. 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 Coincidentally, the day the blogger, he's going to show it to him. Take a look.
What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what it said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you with intermediaries.
Can you ask that question again, please?
Okay, sir. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Don't all the witnesses have the same look in their eyes? That same deer in the headlights look? That same from Marie Russell to the cop to everyone except Dever. I mean, do I need to show you? It's that same look, that same non-blinking look.
Yes.
Like from side button.
Okay. So there's Aidan Kearney right in the back, and then he moves to the front. So here, look, it's the same look. I was remarking on it today. Is that the same look? Barbus? Nicholas Barbus? I mean, same look testifying. All right.
And sir, do you notice the big red dumpster to the right side across from Fairview?
Yes.
You can take that down.
So curious that he didn't bring that up right when he said, well, there wouldn't be in the front yard. There it is in the front yard, that big dumpster. I would totally notice a big dumpster in the front yard. There's a dumpster now, but there wasn't one then. There it is. Wow. Hank Brennan is good.
Sir, when we started the break, I'd asked you some questions. I showed you a document, asked you if you were aware what was inside that document, and you mentioned that was around June 5th, 2023. That was before your last testimony in this case?
Yes.
And you knew that a person or persons were putting out private pictures of you online?
I did notice.
And those private pictures, you didn't give anybody permission or want that attention, did you?
I did not.
In fact, it wasn't just some private pictures, it was pictures taken from a number of different times in your life, correct?
Yes.
You never gave anybody permission to do that?
I did not.
You didn't want people talking about you or asking you questions? That was none of their business, did you?
I did not.
And it was embarrassing that you were being made this public spectacle when you had done nothing wrong, correct?
Ask it differently.
Was it embarrassing what they were doing to you?
I wouldn't say embarrassing as more as aggravating.
In fact, they were calling your boss. Yes?
I'm going to allow that.
Yes.
And you mentioned how hard you work.
Yes.
You plow, you even deliver pizzas to ADS.
Yes.
Zamboni, anytime you can work, you try hard, don't you?
I do.
And when someone's calling your boss, giving undue attention to you, didn't it create some concern it could affect your livelihood?
I did not think it was going to affect me in that manner.
In addition to dragging you into this, because of you, your brother was dragged into this, wasn't he?
Ask it differently.
When you were getting this information about what was happening, you learned that they were also dragging your brother into this because of you, correct?
I'll sustain that.
Did you learn that information was coming out about your brother?
I knew my brother was dealing with other issues regarding this case.
And certainly, you're close with your brother.
Yes.
You care for your brother.
Yes.
You did not want to upset anybody and have more attention brought onto your brother, did you?
I did not.
And there was an attempt to link your brother to one of the outlets, in fact, correct?
Yes.
As well as you.
I don't know if I was being linked.
Did you know the information of trying to so-called out you about the fact that you work for Chris Albert?
I'm going to sustain that the way it's first.
Were you aware when your friends and family were telling you about what was going on, about an attempt to draw a relationship between you and the outlets?
No.
And were you aware when people were telling you what was happening, that there was attacks on you personally, like finances and things like that?
Yes, I was aware of that.
And certainly, that is pretty discouraging when that is happening and you've done nothing wrong, isn't it?
It was, again, aggravating.
And this was all happening before you came in and testified last time at trial.
Correct.
And Hank fights to get a photo in of him with a free Karen reader. And he gets it in. You can tell when they get back. You can tell just the body language of the defense team and Karen Reed when they get their objections sustained or not. They all came back defeated, marching towards the defense table defeated.
After you testified, things got better?
I wouldn't say better. It's gotten a little more easily manageable.
You were no longer being harassed, you were being embraced.
Correct.
May I vote?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that part of the embracing process after you testified a certain way at the last trial?
It was after I testified, yes.
With redactions, I'm going to introduce a select portion of this.
So I need to see what that is. I'm just sidebar and make this very brief, please.
And I just showed you a photograph. Was that a fair and accurate depiction of you after your last testimony?
Yes.
Reflecting you now being embraced rather than attacked?
Yes.
Could we show the photo, please, Ms. Gilman, with the court's permission?
Yes.
And that's you, Mr. Loughran?
Yes.
You can take that down, please. Thank you for your time.
So Lucky Loughran's brother is Selectman Michael Loughran, who's friends with Brian Albert. So they were trying to make, Aidan Kearney was trying to make connections and showing pictures like this. Sorry about all the ads. There's just so many ads on his blog. It's crazy. But here's Lucky, his brother. That's the picture that they. When I first contacted Lucky in June after finding out that he was the one who plowed Fairview Road, that he might tell me that he wasn't answering questions anymore. And then he put this out, this stuff out. Michelle, okay. His wife, Michelle, tragically passed away in April. And Michelle knew the Alberts and posted a picture of Jill Daniels, sister of Julie Albert, and her nephew. I mean, he puts up all these pictures of kids. Jill Daniel campaigned for Lucky's brother. So that gives you a little idea. And here's his interview with Turtleboy. Sure, you can find it online if you want.
Just very briefly, sir, if I might be on.
Sure.
Mr. Loughran, I should say. The questioning about the attention that you received in 2023 when you received secondhand the information from the blogger, was that before or long after you were interviewed and gave a statement to the defense investigator in February of 2022?
It was long after.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Loughran, you are all set, sir. Okay. There are another witnesses.
The defense calls Karina Kolokithas.
So Karina Kolokithas is now saying that basically Brian Higgins was triggered by John O'Keefe's kiss on Karen Reed's forehead into a jealous rage, even though he was clearly just not that into her by the text messages. And also that Jen McCabe strangely lured Karen Reed to 34 Fairview by being friendly. I mean, this case makes you want to never be friendly to anyone ever again, to never help out even an acquaintance, or try to find your friend if they've been lost, quote unquote. Karen Reed knew just where John O'Keefe was, of course. It was all a ruse, but it never makes you want to help out your friend's girlfriend, to find your friend, or help anyone out ever again. I mean, just to give you an idea about Karina Calakeus, prosecutor Adam Lally, the first time around, asked Karina around the time of midnight, so when you were leaving, who, if anyone, did you start to walk out with? It was always Jen, myself, and Karen. We got up and Karen went over to John, something like that. He put his arm around her. I don't know if they had a conversation. They talked. It seems like they were quite lovey-dovey at that point. And then that's when you made a comment to your husband, why aren't you lovey-dovey with me like that? And John O'Keefe had said to Karen Reed in those text messages, so I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you are, apparently. So each time her testimony, re-listening to it before this live stream, it changes. And this time it's even more pro Karen Reed. But to give you an idea of why that might be so, one only has to look at the video of her husband thanking Turtleboy. He testified at the first trial. He's a lawyer, Nicholas Kolokithas. Check it out.
All right.
Thanks for everything. You see that? One more time. There he is. Thanks for harassing witnesses. Thanks for trying to get our friend's murderer off, because we're friends with the murderer ourselves, and we'd like to see her get off.
All right. Do you need to see me before as she's coming in, or will that be in what?
Friends with her. Anyway, here she is. She's also the happiest defendant, or the happiest witness in a murder case that you've ever seen. Reminded me of Livia Soprano. She's a real snake in the grass. Snake in the grass. That's what I think when I see her testimony. I mean, imagine giving this testimony and helping out your friend's killer. I mean, she testified that she was seeing John O'Keefe once a week. They weren't just they were friends.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
She's a pharmacist.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell both your first name and your last name?
Sure. My name's Karina Kolokithas. It's Karina. Last name Kolokithas. Kolokithas.
That's almost as bad as you know.
It's long.
In what town do you live, ma'am?
I live in Canton.
How long have you lived there?
We've lived there for 22 years.
Where did you grow up?
So I initially grew up in Randolph, and then we moved to Braintree, and I finished my last 3 years of high school and stayed there till I was married.
And where did you go to school after high school?
So after high school, I went to Northeastern University. I did the pharmacy program there.
And what is your profession?
I'm a pharmacist.
How long have you worked as a pharmacist?
So total years is about 30 years as a pharmacist, but I have been at my current job for about 24 years.
Are you married?
Didn't Marie Russell graduate from Northeastern too? Am I wrong about that? Let me know.
I am married.
To whom?
His name is Nicholas Kolokithas.
How long have you been married for?
24 years.
Do you have children?
I have 2 children.
And without giving us their names, can you tell us if you have boys or girls and what their ages are?
So I have 2 girls. One is 19 and one is 17.
Have you raised your children in Canton?
Yes, I have.
Do your children play sports, or have they played sports in Canton?
I have both girls played sports in Canton. One actively is playing sports there, and one is in college. So.
Okay.
she's not playing sports.
Understood. What sports have your girls played?
So they primarily played basketball, and my youngest plays lacrosse as well.
From raising your children in Canton and attending their sporting events, I'm assuming, have you met other parents with children on your daughter's teams?
Yes, I have.
Specifically, did you come to know Jennifer and Matthew McCabe?
Yes, I have.
And is that the way that you came to know them?
Correct. Typically, like that's how we came to become friends with people, through the sports.
Now, prior to January 28th of 2022, how long had you known Jennifer McCabe specifically?
I would say about 10 years or so.
And during that time, what was the nature of your relationship with Jennifer McCabe?
So we were just friends through the kids. Multiple kids did different sports. They played on different sports teams, so we were friends through that.
And how often, or if at all, did you socialize with her and or her husband?
So typically, sometimes if the kids had play dates, it was mostly my youngest daughter, to be honest. So my youngest daughter and one of her daughters were good friends and played on similar sporting teams. So they would have play dates and stuff like that. So sometimes we'd see them after a game, or if they have play date or something like that.
And I'm sorry, it's a little loud with the fan. If the last part of your answer, if I didn't hear it, I'm thinking the jurors might not have heard that. You said it was mostly after games?
After like sporting, like after play dates or sports and stuff like that.
I see. And would there be times where, after a game you go out for pizza, that type of thing?
Yeah, like you'd go out for pizza, or the girls would be like, "Hey, Mom, can we have a play date? Can a couple of the girls, come over the house and
Okay.
do stuff like that?"
Prior to January 28th of 2022, did you know John O'Keefe?
So I knew John O'Keefe same way. His niece and my younger daughter are good friends. So same thing. We knew him through the sports as well. My husband coached his niece in a couple teams, and they also played soccer together. So that's how we knew John.
And do you remember how long you would have known him for before January?
Yeah, for whatever reason, she's disparaging Jennifer McCabe. And for her to not say that Karen Reed, what she told the Mass State Police, that Karen Reed was nagging to keep partying and to keep the party going and go to a pizza parlor. Instead, that began, people were talking. And then, through testimony, it began that Karen wanted to stop drinking. Somehow, Ronnie, hopefully there's no Ronnie, the EMTs on this jury. Ronnie, the EMT, started victim blaming, saying John wanted to go to this after get together at 34 Fairview, and Karen wanted to stop drinking and get pizza and eat something. And, but she really wanted to keep partying just at a pizza parlor. It's pretty clear. So, meaning that it's sort of John's fault that he wanted to continue imbibing. Meanwhile, Karen is 50 times more drunk than John O'Keefe that night or whatever. I don't know. That's an exaggeration. 50 times. That's just an expression, but much more, has imbibed much stronger alcohol and a lot more than John O'Keefe did that night. But I'm just going to play a little of this so you get the feeling of it.
28th of 2022?
I would say about 9 years or so.
And what was the nature of that relationship?
Friendly. Didn't go out with him, but we were friends. We saw him all the time. He would, take my younger daughter with him. We just saw him all the time. So weekly, I would say.
Sure. What about Karen Reed? Did you know Karen Reed prior to January 28th of 2022?
So same thing, met Karen through John. And I believe the first time I met her was at Jennifer McCabe's house sometime in 2020.
2020?
Correct.
So this would have been during the pandemic?
Correct.
And do you see Karen in the courtroom today?
I do.
Would you please point her out and describe what she's wearing?
She is wearing a blue suit at the table with her lawyers.
Okay. May the record reflect that the witnesses identified Ms. Reed?
Okay.
Now, prior to January 28th of 2022, how often would you have seen or interacted with Karen Reed in any capacity, if you know?
So Karen sometimes would come to watch games of John's niece. So I would see her there and we just casually talk.
And what was the nature of your relationship with her prior to January 28th of 2022?
We were friendly.
All right. Now, directing your attention to January 28th of 2022, do you recall that being a Friday?
She says in the other testimony, I always really liked Karen. Don't worry, Karina, you will be discarded at one time. or another, the way Karen Reed discards everyone in her life that disappoints her, she'll drop you, ghost you. Don't worry, it's coming for you. She's held on because, you're useful to her. Sure, she's love bombed you, etc. Threw on the charm.
Correct.
But notice that the Calakeus is, Nicholas and Karina both never got harassed the way Jen McCabe did and Carrie Roberts. You notice that? They never got really harassed. And Carrie Roberts didn't get harassed the same way Jennifer McCabe did. And the Alberts. They didn't take the rolling rally past the Calakeith's house. Wonder why.
What did you do that day?
So that day I worked.
As a pharmacist?
Correct.
Do you recall what your hours were?
Approximately, I would say 8 to 4:30 that day.
What plans did you have after work?
So after work, my plans were to go to the Canton High basketball game to watch my daughter play.
And what plans came up for before the game that night?
So before the game, before I left work, there was a text that went around saying that some of the parents were going to meet at the Canton Junction before the game, and if anybody wanted to stop by and grab a bite to eat.
And what is the Canton Junction?
So it used to be like a little pub/restaurant in Canton.
Did you go to the Canton Junction?
So I went home first because I had a bag I had to switch out of because we have to have plastic clear bags at work. So anyway, I went home, and then after that, I stopped at the Canton Junction.
Okay. And did you go alone or with someone?
So I went by myself.
And when you got...
You have to have plastic clear bags? Is that so they don't take home any of the drugs? Is that why they have to bring in plastic clear bags? What was that? Why?
There, did you see people that you knew?
Correct. So I walked in, and there was a bunch of parents there from the varsity teams, the varsity team.
And excuse me, was either John O'Keefe or Karen Reed there?
They were not there.
What about Jennifer McCabe and or Matthew McCabe, her husband?
I believe Matthew McCabe was there. I don't believe Jennifer went to the Canton Junction.
Now, how long were you at the Canton Junction for?
I would say less than an hour.
Do you recall about what time it was that you would have been leaving there?
I'm not really sure. The game started at 6:30, so before 6:30.
All right. And when you left the Canton Junction, where did you go?
All right. Spoiler alert. She says Jen McCabe said, and she thought it was really strange that Jen McCabe said, "You come with me." And she's never seen a man kiss a woman on the head with a forehead. All right. So you get the feeling, the flavor. Everyone's saying they're bored. So I'll cut it short. I'll cut her short. Bored and cringy. So tomorrow we have no testimony, no court tomorrow because of the heat. So I will not be live streaming the trial because there is no trial. So thank you so much for watching with me. I hope that gives you some background into Lucky Loughran and how he was targeted. And both of them became pawns. Both Karina Kolokithas and Brian Lucky Loughran became pawns of both Karen Reed and her team of criminal lawyers and Aidan Turtleboy Kearney. I hope that gives you some background and how both of them, their testimony has changed quite significantly, shifted and changed. Now, I find it very interesting that Officer Barbos is now the hero of the Karen Reed trial when he testified that her taillight was indeed smashed to smithereens and that the picture of the taillight in the Sally Port was the condition of the taillight when he saw it at Karen Reed's parents' house was just identical. So all he's acknowledging is that Karen Reed's taillight was smashed to smithereens when he saw it. I don't know how that's helpful to Karen Reed when her own experts say that she could not have done the damage to her taillight by love tapping, meaning moving her car gently into John O'Keefe's car at 5:07 a.m., making ring camera evidence, strangely not deleted, like some of the other ring camera videos. making her own evidence and giving herself an own alibi as to how she broke her taillight. So I don't know how that's helpful. It all seems to be one big nothing burger for Karen Read, but if there are Turtle riders or Karen Read supporters on the jury, none of this matters. We are headed once again to a hung jury if that's the case. I think we'll know pretty quickly after 2 or 3 days of no verdict that we're probably not going to get a verdict, I would think. I'm anxious for this to go to the jury and get a verdict. Everyone who's not been touched or bamboozled or joined in on Karen Read's innocence fraud can see that this has been not a great trial for Karen Read. We have rumors from behind the scenes that the defense team is imploding, that there's infighting and fighting amongst Karen Read's family, is having, especially her dad, having temper tantrums. Karen Read herself is having temper tantrums, yelling at her defense teams. These are the rumors going around, yelling at her own defense team for making her do those interviews when it was a strategy they all agreed to, which was play out their defense in the court of public opinion instead of the court, when her own words may convict her of something in this case. She apparently had a hissy fit and blamed her lawyers. Alan Jackson apparently pushed back on it, but the geek, I don't know, it's also called the fall guy, Robert Alessi. This is also a rumor going around that Robert Alessi is the fall guy, and they will use him in the appeal, saying that Alessi, who's a civil lawyer, should have never been trying this case, gave Karen Read inefficient assistance of counsel. Karen Read has been warned again and again about her team of criminal lawyers, that they are not giving her good representation by breaking the law with the ARCA witnesses and many other reasons, making so many extrajudicial statements, other reasons, starting with Adam Lally, warned her about the fact that she should not be able to appeal on grounds of inefficient assistance of counsel, and she should be warned that her lawyers are not representing her well. But I think she will, if she should be convicted of anything, will appeal on that anyway, even though she's been warned and warned and warned. When the ARCA scandal came down, the fact that Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, Elizabeth Little, and Robert Alessi, especially Robert Alessi less so since he came to the team later, but the three formerly mentioned lawyers were all lying to the court, had lied to the jury about the ARCA witnesses being unpaid, unbiased witnesses, when in fact they were retained and paid $925,000. What was it? I'm sorry. What was it? $23,925. Wow, that's a mouthful. She was warned and asked if she wanted to drop her counsel, I believe, privately. That is my belief. I can't prove it. It was all done in sidebar, but I believe she was asked if she wanted to keep her lawyers. That would, of course, if she chose a new counsel and said that she didn't want to change lawyers, it would have delayed the trial. They came back from that sidebar saying that Karen Read wants to keep all her lawyers, but I believe she was warned in that sidebar about appealing on inefficient assistance of counsel. We shall see how it goes. We will be back streaming the trial Friday. I'm always on around 8. I was on early this morning and early yesterday. I'm usually around 8:30, 8:40. I'm usually on a little bit early before the trial starts, just to shoot the breeze and update you on any latest news in the Karen Read case. Please hit the like button. Share this episode with your friends and family. Tell your friends and family about this podcast. Leave me a comment. I do read all your comments and get so much out of it. Support the show. Links are in the description of this episode. Great way to support the show. Send a donation via Venmo. Buy me a coffee. Also, great way to support the show is always by becoming a Patreon member and get access to content you won't get anywhere else. Have a great night, everyone. I won't see you tomorrow morning, but have a great morning too. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks, Pat Brooks, for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, carry, gin, gin. Like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Yeah. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown.